Good afternoon. It's Monday. I hope you had a good Super Bowl weekend. I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to the Sal Greco Show. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit the Rumble button, hit the like button, hit the follow button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like, share, and subscribe. Before we get into what this episode is going to entail, I'd like to give a shout out to the Highlight League Chargers. They're the reigning, defending Magic City Fronton champions from last season. I was there, and they wiped the floor with the Highlight League Cyclones after they had a bad first game. So they're still in first place. They're defending the championship very well. And you could watch those games on ESPN3 or go on YouTube. Check out the Highlight League. It's a great sport, and I can't say enough about Scott, who's running the league, and I hope there's a big future in Miami and maybe in other states as well. So we're going to discuss on this episode, we're going to do a deep dive into the Eric Adams indictment, the subsequent co-conspirators that are now pled guilty and could be potential witnesses now, with a lawyer who will give her legal expert opinion and break this all down with us, and some news stemming from the New York City Police Department. That's coming up on this edition of the Sal Greco Show. It's Monday after the Super Bowl, and I have my friend, and she's a very high-skilled lawyer, counselor, Sarena Townsend. How you been, Sarena? How's everything?
Thank you, Sal. It's great to be back. Everything's great. I can't wait for this show with you. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah. So for the folks out there that don't know, recently Sarena was also on another show with me. We were on Crowdsource the Truth with Jason Goodman. And Sarena was breaking things down in a legal manner that had Jason's head spinning. And a lot of it involved the Eric Adams criminal case, because there's a lot of chatter of the Justice Department dropping a case. And Donald Trump, President Trump, might pardon him. And we here, knowing the history, especially Serena's been in law forever. She's worked on both sides of the fence, and she worked in corrections. She was in this administration briefly. So she says, and she agrees with me, that there is no chance of this, right? That is your opinion here, that there's no way that this guy could get pardoned for anything.
I don't think he will get pardoned. I don't. First of all, Trump is not necessarily going to do that, because if it doesn't interest him, if it's not in his best interest, then he's not going to do it. This is all politics. And I don't see what could benefit President Trump by dumping this case, a case that seems pretty solid to me, and a case where, frankly, he's been screwing over a lot of people that Trump wouldn't want to have screwed over, between the police department and New York City, citizens. I don't see Trump siding with him over the people of New York. I just don't.
So I'm in agreement with you, but there was something that happened in the last few days, and I want to read it out to you and the audience, and then we'll get your take on it as a counselor, and a good one at that.
Thank you.
This is an article in The City, all right, and it says right here, Mohammed Bahi, ex-Eric Adams aide, to plead guilty to federal conspiracy charges. If he cooperates with prosecutors, the former liaison to the Muslim community for City Hall could be a key witness against the mayor. This is written by, everyone knows his name, Greg B. Smith. He's the dean of journalists in New York City. He is, he fine-tunes any legal case. I mean, he writes all the details. So here we go. A one-time senior aide to Mayor Eric Adams, who was charged with organizing an illegal straw donor scheme for the mayor, has agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy in the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office, revealed Friday. Mohammed Bahi, formerly one of the mayor's liaisons to the Muslim community, was initially charged in October with witness tampering and obstruction of justice in a criminal complaint that alleged he had direct conversations with Adams about the campaign donation scheme. The feds allege in that complaint that Bahi spoke with the mayor hours after the FBI showed up last June to question the straw donors. The complaint states that he told one of the donors that he had met with the mayor, and the mayor believed the donor would not cooperate with the FBI. The revelation of Bahi's intended plea indicates that acting Manhattan U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassone is continuing to pursue the case against Adams. The New York Times reported last week that Justice Department officials spoke recently with her office, along with Adams' attorney Alex Spiro, about dismissing the case against him. It's not known if Bahi has agreed to cooperate with prosecutors, and no date has been set for him to appear in court and enter his plea. But Sassone filed a letter in the federal case pending against Adams, asserting that Bahi has indicated he intends to plead guilty to one count of conspiracy to violate the laws of the United States. If he does agree to assist prosecutors, he would be the second mayoral aide to do so. Rana Abbasova, Adams' former liaison to the Turkish community, is already cooperating. The status of a third mayoral aide implicated in the Adams campaign fraud allegations, Ashan Chugtai, I hope I got that right, is unknown. Chugtai is identified as Adams' employee 2 in the Southern District of New York indictment against Adams, which claimed Chugtai assisted Bahi in the straw donor scheme. He was questioned by the FBI in June and resigned in October after Bahi was arrested. There's no public record that Chugtai has been charged with a crime related to the investigation. The businessman who reimbursed the donors at Bahi's behest, identified in Adams' indictment as businessman number 4, has also agreed to cooperate with law enforcement in the hopes of gaining leniency in connection with the investigation. Bahi's attorney, Derek Adams, and the mayor's attorney, Spiro, did not return the city's call seeking comment on Friday. Bahi could be a key witness due to what prosecutors alleged was his direct interaction with the mayor about illegal straw donations, contributions that masked the true source of the donation. In the indictment brought against Adams, prosecutors charged the mayor knowingly solicited and accepted these donations, including some they allege were actually funded by the Turkish government, and then used these donations to try and increase his share of public matching funds. According to the Adams indictment, Bahi, identified as Adams employee 1, and Chugtai approached businessman number 6, the owner of a Brooklyn contracting firm, asking him to raise $10,000 for the mayor's 2021 campaign. At a December 10, 2020 fundraiser attended by Adams, the contractor and 4 of his employees donated $2,000 each at Bahi's suggestion. The contractor illegally reimbursed his employees for their contributions, prosecutors charged. In June, the FBI served a search warrant on the contractor at his home and interviewed the 4 employees who fronted the donations. All initially denied wrongdoing, insisting that the donations were all legitimate. The morning of the search warrant, the contractor notified Bahi of the FBI's inquisition. Bahi came to the contractor's office and told him he just informed the mayor of the inquiry and encouraged him to keep lying to the FBI the indictment charges. Because the donations were reimbursed with cash, Bahi allegedly said the FBI would be unable to prove that the reimbursement had occurred. He then said that he'd just spoken with the mayor and that the mayor believed the contractor would not cooperate with law enforcement, according to the indictment. Prosecutors say Bahi had used the encrypted app Signal, including in texting with the mayor. When the FBI executed a search warrant at his home in July, prosecutors say he at first pretended not to be home, then eventually let them in. During that time, prosecutors allege he deleted the Signal app from his phone. Direct communications with Adams about the contribution scheme are a key element of the case pending against the mayor, who has insisted he knew nothing about illegal donations from overseas or anywhere else. As of now, Adams is scheduled to go to trial on April 21st, just weeks before the June 24th primary. Prosecutors recently stated in a court filing that law enforcement had continued to identify more alleged co-conspirators and additional criminal conduct by Adams. They have also said they are likely to add more charges against the mayor and possibly add some co-defendants.
Oof.
What do you take on after hearing and reading that?
Things are not looking good for our good mayor, Eric Adams. Not good at all. Holy cow. First of all, this is the problem. You can't trust, your co-conspirators. Like, they're going to roll over on you when you're the mayor. You're the big fish, right? The mayor is the big fish. the prosecution is going to be looking to have all of these smaller fish cooperate, and they're going to entice them to do that with good deals. So this guy, Bahi, is probably staring down the gun right now at other, at these charges. And he's like, well, what's in it for me if I go down for the mayor? I'm not doing this. So he's going to take whatever good plea that they're going to give him and cooperate and give them information. He's looking pretty bad, Bahi, with the evidence that it seems they collected showing this consciousness of guilt, right? His deleting of the Signal app, you know what that's all about. So, all of those actions that he took and the conversations that he had with the contractor, hoping, I guess, that the contractor wasn't going to cooperate, that Mayor Adams said he wouldn't cooperate. It's so shady. It's all, it kind of shapes up to like this mob boss that Adams is, because he's like, oh, this guy, don't worry, this guy's not going to cooperate. Don't worry, you can keep lying to the FBI. He's influencing and encouraging criminal behavior. And that in and of itself is criminal behavior. Taking that alongside the fact that if he did encourage those straw donations and, solicit them and use them and reimburse people for it, that's a crime in and of itself as well. So all of this, and I know you've mentioned this, Sal, this isn't upgraded plane tickets. This is true crime. This is bad conspiracy crime. And a lot of times when a prosecutor offers a deal to these little fish, they give them a decent offer. They give them a good deal so that they could collect their cooperation. But also a lot of times part of the deal is, listen, when you plead guilty in that courtroom on the record and you get the benefit of that low deal that we're giving you, you have to inculpate the head conspirator, the mayor, meaning during their plea allocution, when they're pleading guilty and they're saying, I did this and I did that, the prosecutor has the ability to inquire on the record and say, and who did you do that with? Or at whose direction did you do that? And if that's part of the deal and they put Eric Adams' name on the record as part of their plea, it's an even stronger case against Eric Adams. And I would expect that the feds would put that as part of the deal. If it were me and I were still a prosecutor, I certainly would.
Yeah, when I read that part of how Eric Adams seems to be telling them, don't worry, it's cash.
Mm-hmm.
That right there says a lot about not only this man's integrity, but it does everything you've heard, people, not only just myself, but John McCarry, Eric Dim, Marlon Bethel, other, Sid Rosenberg, Curtis, they all reference Eric Adams like a crime boss, like a crime syndicate. That's what a guy, who's part of a syndicate like that would talk. Don't worry about it. It's cash. The FBI will never find it. Now, if you say something like that, and this person who was the contractor who was donating and stuff, and he doesn't cooperate with the FBI, wouldn't that be obstruction by Eric Adams telling him, don't tell him nothing, don't do anything, don't worry, they're not going to find it? Could that be an obstruction charge?
1,000%. It's witness tampering. If you tell a person not to cooperate with the FBI when the FBI is asking questions about illegality and criminal charges, and especially if it affects you, then yes, that is witness tampering. That is an additional charge above and beyond everything else that he's facing. And it's a really serious thing. Like, prosecutors can use that in so many ways, again, as a consciousness of guilt, but they also could use, like, if a witness stops cooperating and they had originally cooperated, then even if that witness can't testify in court now because they've been, tampered with essentially or threatened, prosecutors are now allowed to use out-of-court statements. Usually they'll ask a judge to be able to use out-of-court statements that are usually considered hearsay and not admissible. But because prosecutors will be able to show that the only reason this witness is unavailable is because of the tampering by the defendant, Eric Adams, they could now use other statements that witness has already made outside of court in the actual trial proceeding. So it's big.
Yeah, this sounds big. I know exactly what this sounds like. I don't know if it's RICO yet because you're not hearing about any co-conspirators, although there may be, and they're not telling us because in a separate case right now with Ingrid Lewis Martin, the prosecutors, and they're going to have a hearing this week, are not giving her lawyer, Artie Idala, who's another very close chummy friend of Eric Adams, and he seems to love underworld figures, that they don't want to release some of the discovery because it's an ongoing investigation, and they believe if they were to tell the lawyer, they don't trust him or Ingrid Lewis Martin because, as you know, they know certain figures like a self-admitted criminal mob associate that used to run a shady place in the Bronx with the police commissioner, ex-police commissioner's brother, and that in itself is also being investigated. And that person threatened John Macari online, along with numerous other NYPD, you will say, supervisors, cops threatened. So if you at least are critical of this administration in any aspect, and also we saw that with the chief of department, John Schell, and also Kaz Dodger, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, who's now been silent for quite a while on social media. Find that odd. And that would lead you to believe the prosecutors have the right to say, we can't give this. Well, this is going to be for the court eyes only, kind of like those documents that are sealed that we don't see, because they may threaten a witness, as you're kind of alluding to with the witness tamper. Am I right? That's in two cases here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I find it really interesting because, as you and I both know, like, I've been a part and you've been a part of thousands of criminal cases over the years, right? And when I was a prosecutor, I did that for a decade. I'm a defense attorney. I've done that now for a while. It is very rare where prosecutors will say, you know what, either we can't turn over discovery or we can only turn over discovery for the attorney's eyes only. It's very rare. And like, you have to understand that it has to rise to a certain level for a prosecutor to get to that point of paranoia, that point of like mistrust. So what does that say about the defendant that, that they're going that far that like they can't even participate in the normal legal process because that defendant is so untrustworthy with, the information, or they're part of such a crew of corruption that they're worried about the sharing of information to such a degree that a court might even take away, realize that this is a defendant's rights, that a court is essentially taking away a defendant's right to see the evidence against them and to, really participate in the defense and come up with arguments with their lawyer. To take that away from a defendant, a judge has to really make such a strong determination that the worry is, in fact, a real worry, a real concern that information sharing could happen. So that's the world that we're living in this administration's prosecution.
And this is why I'm having you on, Sarena, because you, like me, take feelings out of this, which many people go either way. We are always taught to go where the facts lead you. I am of the opinion here of just seeing the way the government is, one, reacting to this, two, the state prosecution, and the other, with Ingrid Lewis Martin. They believe they're dealing with not only a crime syndicate, but potentially a mob boss. Because I've seen these tactics only used in a case where it's a crime family boss and there's witnesses and co-conspirators and potential, we can't tell them this because they're going to go react somewhere. They're going to do something crazy. And due to the affiliations of who hangs around this administration, as we could document all the cast of characters, that's what I feel the government and the state prosecution believes. Whether people like the government prosecutors and say everything is a witch hunt, because it's not. But that's one of the arguments. Eric Adams will say, I'm a political witch hunt. Or Ingrid Lewis Martin, who's using the same line, regardless of the egregious conduct of these people. I mean, do you agree?
Right. Yeah, I do. Look, if it were just a witch hunt, then there wouldn't be this much evidence. Like, I think, you and I, we don't even know the bulk of the evidence. We really don't. The public just doesn't. But from what we've already seen coming out and the cooperators, I mean, people, listen, if you believe in the justice system and you believe that people don't plead guilty unless they are guilty, and, we all have thoughts about that. Sometimes people are pressured. But if you're going to take the stance as a citizen that, we believe that these things are happening because it really is happening. Somebody's pleading guilty. They're giving details. They're cooperating. There's a lot of people on that list. There's a lot of people who have given information to the government that clearly is enough to rise to the level of proof beyond a reasonable doubt in their minds. And so, this isn't just a witch hunt where there's nothing there under the rock when you lift that rock. The problem is, maybe people do hate Eric Adams, but also he's a criminal potentially because he's got all of this evidence against him. So two things could still be true at the same time. It could be that the feds were motivated to go against him because they just didn't like what they were seeing. But then when they did their investigation, they saw that it was a legitimate criminal enterprise or criminal activity being taken place at his behest. So both things could be true.
Much like they say, myself, John McCarr, Eric Dear, Marlon Bethel have an axe to grind, but are we not telling the truth?
Right.
It's like
I was in that position too. Oh, she's sour grapes because she was fired. It's like, okay, then point to one piece of information that I have said in the last 3 years that turned out to be false. Not one. Everything has turned out to be true. So I get it. You guys are in the same position.
And there's more, because if you say, like you said, if something is political, right? Oh, it's a political witch hunt. They're doing it for political reasons. But is there a crime there? Was it committed? And can it be used against you in a court of law? And the answer, once again, is yes. That's the call. Yes, he did commit a crime. Whether you think it's political or not, it's 10 years worth of a litany of crimes that were committed inside of 10 years. And in the most recent mayoral campaign where he took $10 million, the Campaign Finance Board suspended their audit of Eric Adams' 2021 campaign and demands that they receive the $10.1 million that essentially he stole from the New York City taxpayers. This has nothing to do with upgraded airline tickets. I think that was a line. I heard Eric Trump say that, and with all due respect, Eric Trump, I don't tell you how to build buildings the way you shouldn't tell us about criminal procedures. You might have been subpoenaed about things that doesn't make you an expert on crime. You've never handcuffed anyone. You never presented charges against anyone. So I would just stay on the sidelines. You're good politically. We like you as far as conservatives, but don't say something crazy like this is about airline ticket upgrades from Turkey, because it's not. It really isn't. And I don't know why you would like this guy. I heard him say something about Bill de Blasio was nice to him. He wasn't nice to him, but Eric Adams left his family alone. You sound very selfish. Many of your father's supporters, Mr. Trump, Eric Trump, many of your father's supporters don't have a job and were brutally terminated because they went against this whole mandate. They're still in court. All Eric has to do is drop the appeal. He's lost at every corner with that case. Many of them, some of them don't have jobs. Some of them don't have a home. These are people that voted for President Donald Trump 3 times. There's numerous people. So don't make it about yourself. And please, if you're going to say something like that, just don't even comment at all. That's just my opinion. But speaking of this, Sarena, I'm going to show you the latest court document in the Eric Adams case, just so you could give the audience, you could tell them what this is about. Because I kind of understand it, but sounds better when it's coming from counsel.
Let's do it.
Here it is. I posted this on X. I said, doesn't look like Swagger Man with no plans case is being dismissed or a pardon he is dreaming of is happening. The federal criminal case is moving forward with co-conspirators and witnesses. This is a lot more serious than is just, quote, airline ticket upgrades, end quote. And this is a letter here, and I see it says, Dear Judge Torres and Judge Ho, the government respectfully submits the letter regarding the 3 above referenced cases which arise out of related conduct and concern co-conspirators. September 27, 2024, grand jury in this district returned indictment, and it gives you all that indictment number, charging defendant Eric Adams in 5 counts. Count 1 charges Adams with conspiracy to commit offense against the United States in violation of 18, and it goes U.S. code. Count 2 charges Adams with wire fraud in violation of another U.S. code. Count 3 and 4 charge Adams with soliciting campaign contributions by foreign nationals in violation of another U.S. code. Count 5 charges Adams with soliciting and accepting bribes in violation of another U.S. code. The conspiracy charge in count one has multiple objects, of which one object is committing wire fraud through the collection of campaign contributions made under the name of someone other than the true contributor, and the subsequent request for public funds based on the misrepresentation that those contributions originated from the named contributor. Adams was assigned to Judge Ho. Two public conferences and multiple ex parte proceedings pursuant to the Classified Information Procedures Act have taken place before Judge Ho. Defense motions have been filed and resolved, and a trial date has been set for April 21st, 2025. On January 10th, 2025, the government filed Information 25 CR 13 DH charging defendant Erdogan Arkan in one count with conspiracy to violate the laws of the United States in violation of another U.S. code. The charge object of the conspiracy is committing wire fraud through the collection of campaign contributions made under the name of someone other than the contributor, and the subsequent request for public funds based on the misrepresentation that those contributions originated from the named contributor. Arkan was initially assigned to Judge Vargas, but was transferred to Judge Ho pursuant to the district-related case procedures. Also on January 10, 2025, Arkan pled guilty before Judge Ho to the sole count of the information. The conduct for which Arkan pled guilty from a part of the conduct charged in counts 1 and count 2 of the Adams indictment in Arkan is identified in the Adams indictment as Businessman 5. And it says, see United States versus Adams, and it directs you right to that. On February 6, 2025, the government filed a notice of intent to file an information charging Mohammed Bahi in a single count with conspiracy to violate the laws of the United States in violation of, it's another U.S. code. The charged object of that conspiracy, as in Arkan, is committing wire fraud through the collection of campaign contributions made under the name of someone other than the true contributor, and the subsequent request for public funds based on the misrepresentation that those contributions originate from the named contributor. The conduct charge in the Bahi information forms part of the conduct charge in counts 1 and 2 of the Adams indictment, and Bahi is identified in the Adams indictment as Adams Employee 1, and it says see United States versus Adams, the section of that. In connection with that case, Bahi has indicated that he intends to plead guilty to the sole count of the information against him. Bahi has been assigned to Judge Torres. No proceedings have yet been held, and it says respectfully submitted Danielle R. Sassoon, United States Attorney. So this was entered into the court on the 7th. So this was also Friday. The article kind of covered. So what can you say to that document? Is it backing up that article, what it said there, or is there anything more you could read into that?
Yeah, so it looks to me like things are heating up. Like everybody's talking about how now that it's 2025, things are going to change. Trump's going to pardon him, right? But as you can see just from that letter, things are actually heating up. In January, you had Arkan kind of charged and plead guilty to something involving the conspiracy, the wire fraud, the fact that like the funds were coming in under false pretenses, essentially is what that letter is saying and what that charge is saying. So it looks like basically that Arkan guy met with prosecutors, told them what he knew, and they were like, all right, well, here's the deal. We're going to charge you, and you're going to take a plea to whatever. They probably negotiated with him and his lawyer, in order to kind of, you want to put it on the record and you want to make it official. So it's not like this is just happening behind closed doors. What they want to do is build this case against Adams. And that's what this is all for. So you have Arkan in January getting charged and taking a plea and making certain admissions about his involvement in the situation. And this letter is alerting both judges that this plea had to do with the Adams case, not just his own case, that this is about the Adams conspiracy. And now you have in February kind of the same thing happening with this Bahi fellow. Same type of deal. We've now spoken with Bahi. He intends to take a plea. He's being charged with the same thing as the Arkan guy, this wire fraud situation where under false pretenses, they took straw donations for Eric Adams. And now he is going to fall into the same type of deal, it looks like. So what I'm reading is a couple of things. Number one, things are not slowing down. They're heating up. Number two, there is, it seems, evidence by these witnesses, by these co-conspirators, co-defendants against Eric Adams that is now come out. Number three, that those people either pled or will be pleading guilty to things having to do with Eric Adams. And I'm, again, curious to know if they'll inculpate Eric Adams, if they'll say on the record during their plea that it was at Eric Adams's behest or request or solicitation, or at least that he knew about it and didn't stop it, something like that. To kind of get Eric Adams involved more officially in his own prosecution. And the last thing I'll say about this is all happening within the last month or two. And so we don't necessarily know who else they may have. It sounds like they may have more people that could come out of the woodwork. Because again, these two people were only first, it seems, charged and pleading guilty recently. So there could be a lot of things going on behind closed doors with cooperation agreements and people talking and folding and singing like a bird, however you want to call it, against Eric Adams that we don't yet know about that could additionally come out against Eric Adams. All of this is building a case of proof against the big fish, Eric Adams.
I seem to think that he also, I'm been told that there's a witness tampering charge coming. And I don't know which one of these witnesses that he tampered with or threatened or whatever it is that he does. More than likely threatened, because that's what I heard. But the way this is written tells me this is not only, getting hot and heavy as you were saying, but it's moving forward and at rapid speed, because it was Eric Adams, his lawyer, Alex Spira, that demanded that this trial be sped up. So they have only a few months to go over 1,000 plus documents of discovery, some that is classified. And in one of the paragraphs of the sealed indictments that the court released in that ex parte part of the classified information hearing they had, they stated that Alex Spira cannot discuss the contents of the evidence being used against Eric Adams, and that only if Eric Adams explains this, like he has to talk about, like he knows. If he doesn't know, Spiro cannot talk about this. So is that something that's common? Because I'm sure this has happened in the past, but it's probably with foreign nationals, like serious, like criminals, not just criminals here. I'm talking about international criminals. That's what it would allude to, no?
It does feel like that. I agree with you. This is not a common thing that happens. And I don't think anything about this whole prosecution and defense is very common. I think, like you and I know, this is a unique situation with Eric Adams. We've had corruption in government. Like, we're not naive. We know that corruption in government exists, but I think this level of it and how pervasive it is and the amount of witnesses they have. And then again, like you said, the tampering of those witnesses. I mean, we've been hearing for years that Eric Adams, at least in the news, right, that Eric Adams has told people to delete things from their phones and don't put things in writing. We've heard that before any talk of criminal indictments have ever come down. And so this is a very unique situation that we're dealing with. And I think that the judge is trying to fit the rules around Eric Adams, because they have to handle this differently from a lot of other cases.
So now, in your expert legal opinion, is Eric Adams is this case going to be dropped or pardoned in any shape or form at any point? Do you see that coming?
It doesn't feel that way. Again, especially with the paper that you just put up, the letter that was just written literally yesterday and filed with court. It just doesn't feel that way. Why are they continuing to get guilty pleas in cases that involve Eric Adams if they're going to drop it? It almost feels now like there'd be a massive lawsuit by those people almost. Like, again, that's not my field as much, but like, to me, if I were prosecuted and asked to cooperate against the big fish, right? And then I actually got a felony record from it, and then you didn't prosecute the big fish. To me, that's crazy. I just don't see how that's possible. So for me, again, taking the feelings aside and just looking at what we have here in front of us, it doesn't feel like a pardon is in order.
I'm in agreement with you with this, and I'd like to point one other case where this occurred, and this is now a newer ally of Eric Adams, a new ally. Steve Bannon had the Build the Wall scam, and he was pardoned before trial, and it's very unfortunate because all his co-defendants and co-conspirators were found guilty in federal court and have either gone to get sentenced, they've been rotting in prison, or they had to do their time. Meanwhile, Steve Bannon, because of that, was then charged by the state, which he is going to face later on this month. And believe me, he will be found guilty because there's no way him being the ringleader of that entire scam, while everyone else was found guilty, yet it was not fair that they had to keep skipping around because he was pardoned. But he's going to be facing justice. So I think don't make the same mistake twice, President Trump. You let one guy, and he's a criminal. Steve Bannon is nothing but he says he's a right-wing guy, in my opinion, and MAGA and all this stuff. He is just like Eric Adams. He goes for the highest bidder. He's got the CCP behind him. Oh, by the way, Miles Guo, the guy he opened up the war room, that guy is rotting in jail too. Everyone around Steve Bannon gets in trouble, but the one time they had him point blank, he gets pardoned for, but he's still going to face the trial anyway because of this pre-pardon and stuff. So that's the dangers of a pre-pardon. It's just federal and not state. But again, Sarena is right. These people were deaf because this would affect many cases, and the cases that you guys out there still don't know about, and we'll kind of allude to it later on in the show. But before we do that, I'm going to show Sarena one last thing. This was a chart. Since now we're going to get back to Eric Adams, who is fully distracted. I don't know how he's running the city, but he's talking about crime being down, and he's got these charts. So my friend, Sam Mantar, whitecollarfraud.com, he blows this guy up every week. He shows you the true numbers, and all he does is take the actual numbers. Remember, he was the CFO of Crazy Eddie's. You're right. He's a convicted felon, and he does not shy away from that. But what was he? A master man of numbers. He's a master at it. He was so good, the government took years to try to nail him. And then he started working for the government, and he started getting people that were doing exactly what he did and thought they were smarter. So I'm going to show you this chart because Eric Adams comes out with these bogus crime is down chart because he has nothing. What else is he going to say? That he's a criminal or a foreign asset? Because that's what this is beginning to look like. Here is this chart, and Sam Mantar says, and he's replying back to Eric Adams, either New York City Mayor Eric Adams is misrepresenting the facts, or he lacks the ability to interpret crime statistics accurately in either case. He is not suitable to serve as the mayor of New York City. Now, here's this chart. So I'm going to read it because some people can't, they're listening to the show. New York City crime under Eric Adams, 2024 versus 2021. Murder and negligible manslaughter, that's the big charges, murder and all the charges that go with that. 2021, 488. 2024, 377. Change is of 111. Percentage, minus 22.7%. Rape, 1,491 in 2021, 1,748 in 2024. That's a plus 257, 17.2%. Robbery, 13,831 in 2021, 16,556 in 2024. Change, plus 2,725, 19.7%. Felony assault, 22,835 in 2021, 29,417 in 2024. Change of 6,582. Percentage, 28.8%. Total violent major felonies, which is what we're looking at here. 38,645 in 2021, 48,098 in 2024. The change of 9,453, that's a plus 24.5%. And there's more. Burglary, 2021, 12,811. 2024, 13,029, plus 218. That's a plus 1.7%. Grand larceny, 40,870. 2024, 48,423. That's a plus 7,553. That's a 18.5%. Grand larceny of motor vehicle, 10,415 in 2021. In 2024, 14,194. That's a plus 3,779. That's up 36.3%. Total 7 major felony offenses. 102,741 in 2021. 123,744 in 2024. It's a change of 21,003 for a plus 20.4%. Do you feel safe in New York City?
Not with those numbers. No, I do not. I mean, look, we all know that PD or whatever agency, not just PD, certainly DOC when I was there, can fudge numbers however they want to try to fool the public. And what does the public know, right? They have no idea where the numbers are coming from, how the numbers are fudged, there's so many ways to fudge statistics for people's favor. And Eric Adams is kind of known actually over the years to be totally up and down with this exact number, the amount of crime. Like he's been able somehow to say that it's been up and down in the same week. Like he has been all over the planet with respect to this crime stats. And so I thank your friend over here for making that chart, because it sounds like he's trying his best to make it as unbiased as possible rather than just, believing everything Eric Adams shoves down your throat, which is that crime is down. I don't think people feel that crime is down. Like, I think people know their experiences are showing that crime is not down. All you got to do is take the subway,
Well, I just want to point this out. Because take feelings aside, whatever you think Sarena thinks of Eric, myself, Sam Antar, the rest of the Finest Unfiltered family, this is a fact-based analysis show. Those numbers, what do they tell you? Crime is not down. And no, Sarena, who lives in New York City, Sam Antar lives in New York City, Marlon Bethel lives in New York City. I have numerous people I know. They all don't feel safe. He touts it as the safest big city in America. The reality is it's anything but that. But,
maybe
there
because
is
he doesn't live here.
Yeah. And there's one other aspect of this, and that's the New York City Police Department, which he's in charge of. Now, I understand that progressive leaders there in city council and the state and the city, there's a lot of blame to put on them. The governor, the speaker of the assembly, the Senate, the city council. I understand that. But at the same time, the New York City Police Department could try to do things in whatever they can, work within the rules they have, which it's not good. It doesn't favor proactive policing or broken windows or this Q stat or whatever Police Commissioner Tisch is trying to put out, because she's policing as if, Ray Kelly is in her ear and his cronies. And we're going back to the past in New York City, and it won't work in a progressively led New York City legislation. It's bound to be a nightmare. And they're still paying for it. But now we're going to go to the New York City Police Department. We have many good officers there, many. But it seems that for whatever reason, the upper management, the executive level staff, and their little underlings are destroying whatever is left of integrity or any trust people have in the police department. And I'm going to show you just 2 articles we're going to read off here. And I wanted Sarena here for this because it's just amazing what happened in the last couple of days of what we're hearing. And some of it ties back into things and people that Sarena actually had to deal with when she was working briefly for this administration. NYPD boss evades tolls New York City congestion prices by commuting with department car. This is coming from a whistleblower in the New York City Police Department. This is by Tina Moore of New York Post. She always, check her out. Tina Moore always has breaking news on the police department. This is one way to evade congestion pricing. An NYPD supervisor allegedly put taxpayers on the hook for $20,000 in tolls by ditching his new Mercedes-Benz at a department outpost on Staten Island and using a city-owned car to get to work, the Post has learned. Lieutenant Joseph Abdelmasih, or Messiah, operations coordinator with the department's community outreach division, has been dodging tolls on the Verrazano Bridge and Hugh Carey Tunnel since August 2022, and more recently congestion pricing, according to a complaint filed by the Department of Investigation. Abdelmasih, 43, drove his Lux ride to an agency office on Staten Island, about 6 miles from his home. Each day he worked, the complaint alleges. He then signed in at the Youth Strategy Division at One Teleport Drive as if he was working before hopping behind the wheel of a department-owned black Ford Taurus for the ride into his real office at 90 Church Street in downtown Manhattan, according to the January 23rd complaint. Doing so allowed Abdel Messia to avoid about $20,000 in tolls and left taxpayers on the hook, according to the complaint filed with the DOI. He also commuted while being on the clock. Another no-no, it said. The lieutenant was able to successfully defraud the city from thousands of dollars in a scheme to avoid the lawful payment of tolls, congestion pricing, gas mileage, and his paid work time, a police source said. His corrupt actions are alarming and merit a department-wide internal audit as to how many other members are engaging in similar conduct. The lieutenant drove a Ford Taurus similar to the one parked outside of 90 Church Street. They show a picture of a car. So this article continues. Abdel Messia's boss, Deputy Chief Victoria Perry, had knowledge of the alleged misconduct but failed to supervise, intervene, and discipline the lieutenant, the complaint alleged. When Perry became aware of the officer's conduct, she distributed a memo to all supervisors banning the practice of signing into work at other locations, according to the complaint. Abdel Messia's union said he had permission to take the car from Staten Island because he was doing two jobs, one there and one in Manhattan. This was all authorized by his boss, Lieutenant Benevolent Association President Lou Turco said. The department knew about it. Abdel Messia was told to stop using the car only 3 weeks ago and did, Turco said. But the NYPD said the lieutenant's actions are under investigation. We are aware and it is under internal review. An NYPD spokesperson said the DOI refused to comment on the complaint. What are your thoughts, Sarena, reading that?
Oh my God. If you only knew how many investigations I handled into misuse of departmental cars, you would be on the floor laughing right now because it was such the bane of my existence. The amount of times people misused their departmental vehicles when I was at DOC. It's mind-boggling. And it was like, just don't do it. Just stop doing it. It's like your departmental vehicle is tracked. It has a GPS tracker in there. And everybody, I guess, thought that like I just wasn't going to track it, but I did. And you're going to get caught when you do stuff like this. There are very specific rules with respect to departmental vehicles. Some people do have commuter access. Some people do not. Some people have, certain limitations. There's very, very strict rules about departmental cars, where you're allowed to go with them, what your commute is allowed to be. If you have to make a stop on your way to home, how far that stop has to be. It has to be like within a mile from your home. Otherwise, it's misuse of the vehicle. It's almost like it's not even worth it, honestly, to have a commuter car if you work for the department, because there's so many rules that are so easily violated. And here you could kind of see where he was scheming to try to violate those rules and the tolls and stuff like that, where technically it sounds like maybe he had two locations of work, but it seems more likely that the one location that he actually worked out of was the one where he'd have to be paying the tolls and stuff like that. So instead it's like, those people who, like Eric Adams, who have a fake address in New York City and claim that that they live in New York City, but they don't. So he had I'm going to my work in this location. And it's like, but you don't actually work there. You work at this place, but you're avoiding all of your monetary responsibilities, tolls and congestion pricing and stuff like that, because you don't want to have to deal with it. So yeah. And then of course it gets more complicated when people inside the department, bosses and whatnot, either don't know or don't care about these rules and they don't enforce it. Because now you see his defense is, well, I was allowed to do it. My boss knew about it. And you know what? Sometimes that does either hold water or it helps mitigate the situation. But why aren't we also going against the boss then? The DOI should be investigating that boss's knowledge, and supervision of these rules, because they shouldn't be allowed to do that either. So they're facing, hopefully, some liability here too. But Yeah, it goes back to what you say, it comes from the top. And if you're not willing to follow even the simplest of rules of, not violating commuter car rules and stealing money that way, then what else is going on in the department that's condoned? It sounds like there's so much that's going on that's being condoned by the upper echelon.
Yeah. And even if you do say, well, my supervisor allowed me, then we have a problem. Then someone needs to be held accountable here. Here's more of the backstory that you don't know, and this audience probably does know.
Let's hear the tea.
This is the third time that Deputy Chief Victoria Perry has made headlines for some kind of corrupt thing that she did. The first one was she authorized illegally people to go to a funeral that was for her mom. I feel sorry her mom passed away, but she's not a member of service, nor was she ever a member of service. She had a procession done by the police department, and they all had to work overtime to go there. That is a fact. This was actually being investigated. We don't know what's going on with that one. The second one, you're going to love this one.
Oh, gosh.
She is accused of steering funds, which are having parties and all this other stuff, all that mishigas that was going on up in the Bronx at Con Sofrito with the self-admitted criminal mob associate Jimmy Rodriguez and the brother of the police commissioner, Richard Caban. Her and another chief who all of a sudden mysteriously retired, Maximo Tolentino, who was involved, and he's also being investigated for sending bulletproof vests overseas to the Dominican Republic in a video that I posted that's now gone from the NYPD Espanol page, where they were using recruits, sending these. Who authorized this? Nobody has answers. They think it's the police commissioner. They say it was Tolentino. Bottom line is, no one knows who authorized what. That was the second time. And now again, Victoria Perry frequented Con Sofrito. She's associating with criminals. They're involved in criminal conduct in that place. There's like 2 or 3 investigations. I've lost count of how many investigations between Con Sofrito, Community Affairs, herself, Tolentino. What is she still doing employed by the police department? That shows you that NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, the billionaire puppet who listens to Ray Kelly and his crony, Brian Burke and Bill Bratton, the Irish connection there. This isn't going to work. The Emerald Society telling you this is not 1995, 2005, not even 2015. You need to get your act together and start suspending people and moving for charges and specifications. Otherwise, you are a billionaire puppet, PC in name only. And no, Jessica Tisch, you do not have a political future. You are an embarrassment right now and a disgrace. And every time I keep hearing she's trying to get the house in order, all you're seeing is rearranging of the furniture. But, they're just putting a chair in the corner to cover that huge hole there in the wall. And then they're going to move that chair and move it slightly 5 feet away and put another chair 5 feet forward. That's all that's going on here. Nothing of substance is going on here. Nobody's being terminated. No one is being prosecuted. It's just, they're being investigated. They're going to find out, they got transferred. That's what's going to happen here. But in all reality, unless there is some kind of federal case, nothing's going to happen. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I see, because now you know a little bit of the backstory with Victoria Perry and the, ring of corruption that's going on there in the upper echelon.
What a story. I don't know why DOI doesn't just have a satellite office at Con Sofrito.
Con Sofrito is actually closed.
Live there. Okay.
But
that's why.
Now this is the last thing we're going to discuss here. And speaking of the Con Sofrito people and the crew, something else occurred. And this is another article, and it kind of shows that it's a absolute free-for-all with this crew. This is a post from me regarding an article I'm about to show you. The Con Sofrito crew strikes again. If these antics at a similar restaurant went on, what was Eric Adams and NYPD executives doing at Con Sofrito, despite the 45th precinct filing a criminal referral to the human trafficking unit of the NYPD on Con Sofrito? So, top NYPD chief held best dressed contest targeting female cops at holiday party lawsuit. This is in the Daily News and is written by Graham Raymond. The NYPD chief in command of Manhattan above 59th Street held a contest for best dressed targeting female cops with a $700 prize during a 2023 holiday party, claiming he had approval from the department's legal bureau, according to a sexual harassment lawsuit filed Friday. Assistant Chief Raul Stevenson of Patrol Borough, Manhattan North, served as a judge of the contest on December 13, 2023 at the Glen Island Harbor Club in New Rochelle, going from table to table, appraising female cops in plunging gowns under his command. The allegations emerged in a lawsuit filed in Manhattan State Court by Lieutenant Mariela Matos Leo, who claimed Stevenson sexually harassed her in 2022 and then tried to derail her career after she rebuffed his advances. There was no prize for best dressed man, said Matos Leo of the holiday party contest. According to a law enforcement source, the NYPD Legal Bureau was neither aware of nor approved the contest, but the department's separate Office of Equity and Inclusion was consulted and did approve it. That's unbelievable. Matos Leo's lawsuit turns on her claim that after she ignored Stevenson's repeated invitations 1 year earlier to the command's 2022 holiday party, he mounted a campaign of criticism of her work that cost her better assignments and made her life miserable. Matos Leo's lawyer, John Scola, says the case is another example of the NYPD's longstanding culture of sexual harassment and retaliation. A best-dressed contest for women at a workplace event sends a clear message that career advancement isn't based on merit, but on catering to the boss's personal desires, Scola said. It forces women into an impossible choice. Either sexualize themselves to stay in favor or risk retaliation, just like Lieutenant Matos Leo. In a statement, an NYPD spokesperson declined to comment on a lawsuit, but said the department does not tolerate sexual harassment and is committed to respectful work environments for our diverse workforce. The NYPD thoroughly investigates all complaints it receives and offers several reporting options for NYPD employees, including anonymously. Matos Leo, 40, joined the NYPD in 2006. She was promoted to sergeant in 2015. In 2019, she sued the NYPD over a complex saga involving an allegedly abusive boyfriend who was also a police officer, claiming other officers retaliated against her for filing a criminal complaint against the boyfriend, court records show. The city settled that lawsuit in 2023 for $60,000, Scola said. In October 2022, Matos Leo was promoted to lieutenant and assigned to the 24th precinct on the Upper West Side, where Stevenson's office is also housed. Soon after she arrived, she says Stevenson was solicitous, I hope I said that right, under the guise of inviting her to the upcoming holiday party several weeks away. He took my hand, introduced himself, and told me to see him if I ever needed anything, and then told his driver, "We've got to tell her about the party," she said. He was holding my hand the whole time. After that, every time I saw him, he would say, "Don't forget you have to come to my party," or he would tell his driver to remind me. Matos Leo was so uncomfortable at the attention, she skipped the party. Stevenson's manner toward her then changed, she alleges. This is how the chief gets when he is rejected, a fellow sergeant told her, the lawsuit claims. Stevenson began criticizing her work in front of other supervisors. In an April 2023 citywide meeting, he pointed to Matos Leo and said, "This is what not to do as a supervisor." A lieutenant inadvertently left his microphone on and said, "Why is this man being such a dick to this girl?" Stevenson overheard the remark and demanded to know who made it. That lieutenant was later disciplined, the lawsuit says. In a May 2023 meeting, Stevenson told Matos Leo if he had the power, he would fire her because her work is mediocre, the lawsuit said. It got to the point where people recognized me, she said. Everyone knew he would take any chance to drag me through the mud. After that, Matos Leo began putting in for transfers to various other units. In December 2023, Stevenson hosted the holiday party with the contest. Tickets were $150, a flyer shows. Matos Leo showed the news photos of the event, including pictures of female cops in slinky dresses that left little to the imagination. And I see this is the flyer for it. Matos Leo also found herself under the microscope from commanders who either worked under Stevenson or previously worked for him. He's the top dog, and so it follows you, she said. He persuades them that you are crazy or incompetent, and your rep gets destroyed. In February 2024, Inspector Kevin Taylor was transferred from command of the School Safety Division to work under Stevenson. He later be placed on desk duty and had to surrender his phones amid a series of corruption investigations that embroiled the AS administration. Taylor has not been charged with any wrongdoing. Taylor demanded Matos Leos salute him every day or every time she saw him when he had just emerged from the gym, she claims. He also ordered her to write down every order she gave cops under her command, the suit says. In May, she asked for a transfer to one of the transit bureaus, but specifically requested not to be transferred to Transit District 4 at Union Square. She was transferred there anyway in June. At the transit district, Matos Leo got into a running conflict with a female sergeant under her command who was close to the unit commander, Deputy Inspector Joseph Pulgarin, the suit alleges. The sergeant allegedly ignored Matos Leo's orders at times and sometimes called her crazy or otherwise made fun of her. At one point, she tried to discipline the sergeant, but Pulgarin, who previously worked under Stevenson, blocked it. In September, she met with Pulgarin, but the commander again refused to discipline the sergeant, the lawsuit says. That's when I decided to sue, she said. I did not want to go to his command. I have been so beat up and disrespected, I had enough. I was going to retire, but now I'm determined to fight to be heard. Matos Leo claims Stevenson's alleged retaliation caused her to make less than male lieutenants and cost her as much as $1.7 million in lost pension benefits, the lawsuit alleges. Matos Leo can retire when she hits 20 years of service in 2026. For now, she is bouncing back and forth between her uncomfortable work situation and her young children, an 11-year-old son with autism and 7-year-old daughter with lupus. It takes a lot of strength to deal with this, she said. If you go to work and show any emotion, I could potentially lose everything. Sarena.
Wow.
You're a counselor. What do you got to say about that? I mean, it sounds familiar, actually. Very, very familiar.
Yeah, it does. It actually sounds very familiar to me. And there is a culture, unfortunately, in NYPD and DOC, frankly, of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and retaliation, certainly, for speaking out about such things. And so, look, I haven't seen any of the evidence in this case, but based on the article, it sounds really horrible. It sounds like she was put in an impossible position. And also, by the way, that best dressed contest is in the worst taste ever and probably not. I guess it wasn't approved by legal, but I'm surprised that it was approved by EEO. I wonder who in particular approved that, because first of all, it singled out the women. It was apparently only a best dressed contest for women. So that's certainly a problem. Secondly, it encourages, what are we trying to encourage from our law enforcement officers here? Like, it's just not a vibe that I think should be had in a workplace event. So look, I think that this lawsuit is going to be an interesting one to follow. I feel really badly for her if the allegations are true. And I guess I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what she said is true, because you do see a lot of that, males in high-powered positions who are very easily offended by the rejection of females. I've been there before, and it's not a fun place to be as a woman.
Yeah, I believe you had to deal with the one aforementioned and very good friends of Raul Stevenson and company, Tim Pearson, a former deputy mayor of public safety and aide to Mayor Eric Adams. And also, how many lawsuits has he involved in sexual harassment? I lost count.
Many. Just so I don't get sued here, Sal, I am not alleging that Tim Pearson ever did anything sexually to me or harassed me at all. He didn't. But I'm just saying the culture of the environment is definitely that way. And I've experienced it myself. And I do, yes, and you're right. I do think Tim Pearson is facing many of those types of allegations. Again, not from me, but, look, it's a hard place to excel as a woman. It is, because no matter how bright you are, how promising your career, a lot of things don't go based on that when men are in charge. So it sucks. And I hope that she ends up getting justice if this did in fact happen.
So now I'm going to get to the part I was mentioning, especially around the consoffreto crew. We have Tim Pearson, I just mentioned. It has four sexual harassment lawsuits. Eric Adams himself is involved in 2. Jeffrey Madry, just look at the Lieutenant Epps situation, which is a disaster. That's also now, you learned, I don't know if you know this, but I revealed a letter from my own lawsuit because me and Lieutenant Epps actually share the same attorney. And in that letter that was given to the court, Eric Sanders wrote something that people are skipping over, and it says that the FBI in Southern District of New York intervened in Lieutenant Epps' case. You saw the raids being performed. So if I'm Jeffrey Madry, and in there, it also mentioned that it's involving top executives in New York City Police Department and the office of the mayor of New York City. If I'm Eric Adams, I'm squirming in that seat because that sounds like a federal case involving sexual harassment or whatever else was going on there. But to look at the whole, pyramid here, there's a problem in the New York City Police Department. Consofrito is full of these a lot of stuff that they said happened there. One of those, as I stated, was the human trafficking report, or report to human trafficking, and we don't know what happened to that. It's like it vanishes after Eric Adams becomes mayor. And they were always hanging out at this place. Now, you mentioned the EEO. Wendy Garcia was the head of the EEO, and she's leaving. She just hasn't officially done it because someone from the sanitation department, that's where Tish used to work, Jessica Tish, was supposed to take that spot and is weary about jumping, doesn't know if Jessica Tish is 100% staying as the police commissioner. So that spot is quasi-open, but not really being run by Wendy Garcia, who I've also learned is under a federal investigation for exactly what you just said with the EEO complaints. So when you read that there's a party like that, and EEO is approving it, Wendy Garcia, who also associated with a known criminal, Jimmy Rodriguez and company at Consofrito, who shouldn't even be in that position, but somehow has kept the job because she's brother-in-law with her brother-in-law is Yadanis Rodriguez, who's the head of DOT, and at one time in city council. That's why we assume she's kept her job there. So that's what's going on with the EEO. And then the legal bureau has no idea about this. And this was my argument, and we're going to find this out. Did they have permission to have all these fraternal parties, fraternal organization parties, Christmas party? You have to get permission from legal because they need to review the places that you're having these parties at and who's funding what, because you're having a party there at Consofrito. Did you forget about that report? Did you forget that they had no permits? Did you forget that they had a rat piss and stuff in the food? All this stuff. Where's the liquor license? How come this guy owns it, but the buildings department said to shut it down? And we had a self-admitted criminal mob associate hanging in there, and he's running the place. So you're saying it's okay for the police department to be here because it's the police commissioner's brother, and he's standing there. These are the things we want to know, but this kind of gives me an insight. Legal Bureau had no idea what's going on. But this here, they're saying they don't know what's going on. But EEO approves it, so you work there in corrections. Have you ever heard of EEO telling the department what to do and not Legal Bureau, who has no idea what's going on?
No, it seems really strange to me. I mean, maybe, look, I don't know if they just ran the best dressed part by EEO, only that, and we're like, gee, is it okay if we have a best dressed competition for only women at this party? And EEO was like, sure, no problem. For me, that's like very strange. I don't know why EEO would approve that, but it also sounds like, yeah, they needed a secondary approval from legal with respect to the rest of it. Is the party itself okay to have in this particular location? Like EEO wouldn't be involved in that. EEO has to do with diversity and equity. It doesn't have to necessarily do with, financial crime or who you're, giving your holiday funds to. And I do think, it's weird if they asked EEO and not legal. Why would you leave legal out of it? It seems strange to me. Yeah. It seems like a case that DOI should be investigating.
Well, here's the funny part you mentioned. So DOI, last week we learned of another lawsuit where John Scola once again was involved in that. Two detectives from DOI who started investigating, and they were actually looking at Consofrito, were pulled and were humiliated because there was what they didn't write there.
Yeah.
So when the detectives were debriefing Chief Jeffrey Madry at the time, the minute they left, Madry had Eddie Caban, a police commissioner, walk in his office. And then after that, lo and behold, they get pulled. One guy has an investigation on him. The other one, they're destroying his career. He ends up retiring. So, and they were called rats and this and that. And it's because why? They were looking at the executives. So it's funny you mentioned, and then Scova.
I shouldn't have mentioned DOI. They're compromised. I don't even know why. You know what I did? I mentioned DOI because I used to work with DOI all the time in my work, and it's what they should be doing. Like, that's where my head is at. This is the type of corruption that they should be looking into. But you're absolutely right. If you don't have the right people working there, or if they themselves are compromised, then DOI is a bust. What's the point of having them? You're right.
And of course, John Scola did not put the right defendants in the claim. He did not put Jeffrey Madry or Eric Adams. He's leaving the big fish out. He's just going direct. I don't know what that is about. And in this instance, I could tell you, it's been alleged already that at this very party that she's talking about in this lawsuit was Chief of Patrol at the time, John Schell, and Chief of Department, Jeffrey Madry. What the hell were they doing there with this going on? You're leaving, there's parts, and it's also, I believe, text messages and pictures, all kinds of stuff that happened at this party, which Raul Stevenson was part of the crew. I guess he's a Freemason or so. There's pictures of him with Eddie Caban and Eric Adams and Jeffrey Madry. They think they're Freemasons or whatever conspiracy you want to lead to, but the facts remain. Madry and Schell were at this party, and I think there's even pictures of it, because that is what is being alleged, at least to me, and I believe this person has the evidence to back it up.
Oof.
So that means
let's have it.
This party was worse than it's even being reported on, which is absolutely, like, what else could I say? So in closing, what are your thoughts on the future here, not only in New York City, but can this be righted, the ship? Because it looks like this administration are perverts. They can't run the city. The mayor is, I don't know where he's going to get hit. Oh, he's got a meeting next week in Congress, my head. So he's being Eric Adams is the one guy I know civilly, criminally, and now congressionally has investigations on him. I mean, can it get any worse? I mean, what do you say for a New York City resident? Because they're like, where do I go? I still have to wait till January for a new mayor, no matter who it is.
It is actually really frustrating. And again, we've said it throughout this conversation that we both have strong feelings about this administration for personal reasons, but forgetting all of that, my friends, people who I know who live in New York City, people who I interact with all of the time, nobody is happy with this administration. It's very obvious that Eric Adams was never capable of running this city, but certainly not now, right? I don't even think he's hiding it. He is totally focused on himself, and he's got to be. I mean, I would be if I were being looked at in every single sense of the word, civilly, criminally, congressionally. He's got to just be looking out for number one, which has always been Eric Adams. So he was never the one for this job. He was never capable of it. He took advantage of his position. He put in his friends and family. He made it into a criminal enterprise. He only did it for his own, ego and position and wealth. That's really all he was ever in it for. He's not a true public servant in that way. And so what we need a change, a complete blank slate at the top. I think that there's a lot of city employees who are currently working who are great people. These are people who are like behind the scenes, who just keep their heads down, and they don't necessarily have political aspirations because they know what that entails. But you do have a wonderful workforce in a lot of ways, with people who are still there and people who are recently departed. But there's opportunity to build from that group of people. Those people existed well before Eric Adams took the helm. Let's go to where we need to go and bring people in, and fresh faces. Hell, let's bring in people from the private sector, whatever it is. We need change. We need people who are in it for the right reason, who don't do things for their friends and family just because they're friends and family, who aren't in it to make a grift, to just have a ton of money coming out of it into their pockets, lining their pockets and their family and friends' pockets, perverts, whatever else, like the scum of the earth. We need to get that out of our leadership and just bring in new people. And I don't want to wait until January. I wish that somebody would force his hand and get him to resign, maybe give him some sort of deal, not a sweetheart deal, but tell him, we'll take it into consideration. We'll take it as mitigation as you trying to do the right thing if you step down, and let somebody else take the helm here. I just, and by the way, if I were his attorney, I don't know that I would recommend that he steps down, because it does show a little bit of guilt if you do that. But at the same time, it also protects him from continuing to make statements publicly that can be used against him in all of these cases down the road. So, I just wish he would step down and give somebody else the reins, somebody who can actually do this job, and have them fill positions that need to be filled. Police commissioner, DOC commissioner, everything, sanitation, transportation, ACS, all of those positions need to be held by actual professionals, not politicians.
Well said, Sarena.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you this week, get ready. There's going to be another major lawsuit filed against the New York City Police Department and the New York City mayor himself personally, from what I understand. And it's going to be a real doozy, and it's not going to look good. And what else can I say about this guy? For those in New York City that say, Eric Adams, we need him in there at least till the end because you're afraid of Jumaane Williams. Let me tell you something. As bad as that guy is, what you're saying is you're for corruption just because you don't like someone. And what have I kept saying here? This is a low information thing to a lot of low information voters in New York City. The fact that you say something like that means you have no threshold for corruption. So if this guy bankrupts you, no matter what it is, because he's selling the city out at every level, anywhere he can, and he even sold out the police department. If that's what you're willing to take, then it says a lot about your own integrity, because he's going to destroy whatever's left in New York City. And for all the stuff that Bill de Blasio is, and I know him and his wife took $1 billion in that, maybe investigated soon. We don't know yet. Everyone's, that might get looked at soon. But Eric Adams is far worse than Bill de Blasio. And the damage that he has done between terminating people for not going along with a mandate, and then he lost that in court, and he's actually spending more money appealing this. And everything else he has done with his collection of perverts around him, and the Crumbs crew, the Consafrito crew, the NYPD, all the damage they've done. You're talking like, this is not millions. You're going to be in the billions by the time this is all said and done. That's the damage he's done. And the migrant shelter crisis that he himself did. It's him. He doesn't know what to do, but he knows how to ask for money and waste money. That's what I've noticed with him. So there's going to be more to come. No matter what you say, this is like a 5-car pileup in a clown show. It's like it's must-see TV with this guy. And you just, for entertainment purposes, you say, yeah, I hope this guy, is there forever. But in reality, I think he should, if he doesn't step down, at least get a plea agreement, which I think may or may not be going on, because those walls have completely collapsed at this point. And that's how I see it. I mean, I just want to end it there. If you have anything else you want to say about Eric, or if you have, tell people where they can find you. Where's your website? Maybe they should hire you to be their lawyer. If you've been wronged by Eric Adams' administration, you should maybe contact Sarena yourself.
Yes, I've represented many, and we've been quite successful. So yeah, you can find me anywhere on social media, but my website is www.townsendlawnyc.com, because I actually do live and work in NYC, unlike our mayor. And you could find me on social media. I'm on X as, I think, Townsend Sarena. I'm on Instagram as Sarena Tee. You just have to spell Sarena right, but it's right there. And I'm on TikTok, actually. I've blown up on TikTok also. So you can really find me anywhere. Just Google me. And if you do Google me, you'll see all of the terrible things the Adams administration did to me also, which is nice, fun, light reading. So, and I will say, by the way, everybody, who's a naysayer about getting Adams out because they're worried about Jumaane Williams, like, Jumaane Williams is not going to steal your money. you may not agree with all of his policies, but he's not going to literally steal your money. And you may not have a problem with corruption in theory, but Mayor Eric Adams is actually stealing your money in his corruption scheme. So if you care about your money, then you will want Eric Adams out of the picture. And Jumaane Williams will be there temporarily, and then you can vote for, person that you want if you don't want it to be Jumaane Williams. But, for me, if Eric Adams is going to be taking my money and using it for his own $5,000 suits, that's not the kind of mayor that I want. And hopefully that's not the kind of mayor that you want either.
Yeah.
So.
I'm in complete agreement with you, just because no matter how long Jumaane Williams has, like 90 days, he could be his mayor. If that's the case, can he possibly create billion-dollar damage in 90 days? I highly doubt it. And it's going to be so much going on. There's not really much time to do anything. There's a lot of fear-mongering there. We've seen that in politics a lot. Kamala Harris did a lot. How'd that work out for her? So the fear-mongering only works on the low-information people. If you have a high threshold for corruption and being robbed, then congratulations, keep Eric Adams in office. But don't cry when you can't afford the bread anymore because this guy took everything from you. That's all I have to say, because that's what's coming to you in New York City. I know he likes to leave that, the migrants buy a loaf of bread. I don't even know what he's talking. Half the time, I don't know what he's talking about. I think he's totally lost his marbles with everything going on in his life. I don't know what else to say. And I feel sorry for the men and women in the police department. And by the way, one last thing. It's funny. That article I read about Lieutenant Abdel Messiah, he called me an emotionally disturbed person behind the scenes. He was telling cops that about me. I hope you have a good lawyer, because you, my friend, belong in prison. I'm not the emotionally disturbed person. You are. That's all I have to say about that. Tune in next time for another edition of the Sal Greco Show. This has been a riveting show. I hope to see you soon, Sarena.
Thank you,
best
Sal.
of wishes with everything. And to the rest of the audience, you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.